Hello, everyone. This is Ruth Ann Angus. I am the director of Yes We Can Peacebuilders in Morro Bay, California. And today I'm talking with someone who I still consider to be a member of Yes We Can Peacebuilders, but she abdicated the throne and is is in godforsaken Odessa, Missouri. What can I say? Um, and you did that in 2020, I believe. It was during the pandemic, as I have since found out that over 400,000 people. Wait a minute, something's going. I'm going to have to do this again. Something's going on with this darn. I'm going to undo this microphone. I don't think it's working.
Oh, is that you sound? Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. It says you're muted, or it shows no sound.
The mic.
There we go. Now I can. Oh, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. I'm going to take the microphone off. All right, I'm going to do this over, folks, in case this is recording, and I think it is. But it's Ruth Ann Angus with Yes We Can Peacebuilders in Morro Bay, California, talking with SanDee Winn, who used to be a member of Yes We Can Peacebuilders. I still think she is, but she abdicated and left the country practically and went to godforsaken Odessa, Missouri to live. Welcome to you. How is it out there in Missouri today?
Cold and gray.
Cold and gray. Which you tell me sometimes that it's always cold and gray.
Yeah, well, it's either cold and gray or it's hotter than Hades.
Oh.
No, well, we actually do have nice days. Few and far between, but we do have nice days.
And we have cold and gray in Morro Bay a considerable amount of the time. And you lived here, so I know you know that.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can go. There was one day a couple weeks ago where it actually went from almost 80 degrees during the day to snow that night. We had about 3 inches of snow. So the temperature just kept, dropping throughout the afternoon. Yeah, it was wild.
You get the polar, whatever they call that thing, the polar vortex coming down into the middle of the country.
Well, everybody here says that we have bipolar weather.
Oh, okay.
I used to think Morro Bay had crazy weather. Give it 10 minutes, it changes. Oh, here it's even more. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I can't imagine, but I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's the thing. So I decided to try to find out what we're going to talk about, the differences between living in Missouri and living in California. And neither one of us are originally from either one of these areas. We are both from somewhere else.
Correct.
I am from the Northeast area, which was in New York, New Jersey. And I emigrated to California 55 years ago, believe it or not. So I'm more Californian than I ever am anything else anymore. But you are a little bit of what you are when you grow up, too. And you grew up in?
Well, I was born in Utah, but we moved to California when I was 4. So I consider myself an adopted native.
Oh, you're almost a native then. So you really had a lot of California before you decided to leave.
Yeah.
Ah, interesting.
I don't really claim Utah. I claim California.
Yeah. All right. Well, that makes it very interesting. That makes for an easy. That's good. The comparison should be good then. Okay. So I looked up Missouri, and did you know that Missouri is the birthplace of ragtime music?
That doesn't surprise me. We have a jazz museum in Kansas City, which I haven't gotten to yet.
I also have Kansas City Jazz and St. Louis Blues.
Yeah.
All 3 types. Yeah. I did not know that. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
And it's far, far away from you, but Branson, all the way down in the southern part of your state's a very musical area. I mean, that's where they have a lot of shows.
Yeah, it's about 6 hours away, 5-6 hours south.
Oh, yeah. So Odessa is not too far from Kansas City?
Yeah, we're about 40 minutes directly east of Kansas City on the Interstate 70.
Okay. All right. Here's another thing. You're also known for Kansas style barbecue.
Yep.
And St. Louis style barbecue.
Yep.
As compared to Santa Maria barbecue that we have here, because I don't think Morro Bay has any kind of barbecue, but that's okay. Is the barbecue too good? Have you had it?
It's good. It's the Kansas City style. It has more vinegar in it, more vinegar flavor. The St. Louis, I don't know that I've had that, but yeah, they're big on barbecue out here. Huge, big on barbecue. Everybody barbecues. Yeah.
Okay. So here's the nitty gritty now. Missouri is known to have a relatively low cost of living as compared to other states like California. Also, low property taxes, affordable housing options, lower than average process for goods and services. And somewhere on my little records here, it told me that Missouri is the 6th lowest cost of living that was recorded in Missouri in 2020. The 6th lowest cost of living in the country.
When was that? In 2020?
2023.
Oh.
The year we just passed.
Okay.
And Hawaii has the highest.
Right.
Massachusetts, believe it or not, is the 2nd, and Washington, D.C. the 3rd. And good old California is the 4th highest cost of living. And then, of course, New York, New Jersey. And then it goes to this. Oklahoma, if you want to move to the really lowest, is the lowest.
Right.
Kansas is the 3rd lowest. You might want to move across the border.
Yeah, but the weather over there is even crazier than it is here. Oh, it's horrible over there.
Really?
Yeah. And Kansas is flat. There ain't nothing in Kansas.
Well, aren't you flat?
Actually, no. We have the Ozarks, the mountains that are south of the state. And here it's hilly. It's very hilly.
Oh, is it?
Not mountains. It's not mountains, but it is hilly. It is considerably flatter than home, but yeah, it's hilly.
Okay. Well, you improved.
But I don't know that I would agree about the cost of living situation.
I was wondering if you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Why? What's the difference?
Well, the wages here are considerably lower, and property prices went through the roof with COVID. For example, before COVID, an acre of land went anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 an acre, and now acreage is anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 an acre. And then recently, there was a property that was sold about an hour east of me that went for I think it was $30,000 an acre.
Wow.
Yeah, and people are not happy.
Was it housing? Yeah,
it's farmland. It was farmland that went. I think it was 200 acres went for 34 million. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but housing has gone up considerably here.
To purchase.
Yes, and rents are bad, or high, I should say,
as compared to California.
It's not that much. It's a little less, but not as big a difference as you would think. But out here, the wages are less.
Yeah, I could say that about Morro Bay.
Yeah, well, anywhere, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the problem with California. When you go to look at California, the cities, are so completely, metropolitan area is completely different from the rural area. I mean, it's just really a black and white situation almost. To me, it's that different.
Well, I felt like Morro Bay, because I moved from the big city to Morro Bay, and I felt like Morro Bay was a great place to acclimate yourself to a small town, type environment and mentality. Morro Bay's got just under 10 or just about 10,000 people, whereas like Odessa has 5,500 people, and this is actually the largest town in the county. But Kansas City itself has only got 460,000 people.
Yeah, I looked you up. Let me see if I have that. Your population right now, statewide, is a little over 6 million. When you compare that to California, we're almost 40 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think our area, our geographic area is different also.
Oh,
we're much larger than you are. I had to laugh at this. Your highest mountain in your state is 1,772 feet, which is like going over the grade here in central coast of California. And of course, in California, it's, Mount Whitney, 14,505 feet, which is, people they die climbing it. So there's no comparison whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it was really interesting to look these two things up, because what I got on the answer, when you go to Google them and what have you, it comes up so differently,
Oh, yeah.
Yours is so, actually, I thought the Missouri one was better put together than the California one. I really did. It was hard for me to dig it, but I got onto something for Wikipedia with California, and it was about 149 pages of information. Wow. Yeah, it was nuts. And I did not get that with Missouri, but why didn't I get that with Missouri? Because you guys have really some very extreme history.
Oh, yeah.
More so in a way than California does. I mean, we have some, but it's very particular history.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of interesting. I didn't know this. I guess I should have. Lewis and Clark must have come through.
Yes. Oh, it's amazing. So one thing that's really cool is you can be driving down the road and you'll see a historical sign, Lewis and Clark, and there's several towns you can go to. There's trails that they actually were on, or they camped in the area. Yeah, there's all kinds of things about Lewis and Clark here.
And then the other thing, Dred Scott was another famous person that's noted on your history. Dred Scott, D-R-E-D, Scott.
I've heard of
him. I have to look him up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know the person.
You don't know him. Well, yeah, I'm sure you've heard the name. I've heard the name too.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it has something to do maybe with the black and the slavery and issue. But we're both being very terribly uneducated here now, because I should know too, and I don't. But we all know Harry Truman.
Yes, his museum, his library is just down the interstate.
Oh, close to where you are.
Yeah.
Have you gone?
No, because it was actually being it was under construction. They were doing some remodeling or something, so it hasn't been open until just recently.
Ah, bummer.
Yeah.
Okay. Your famous black son. I do know this. Didn't know it's from Missouri, but this is interesting. George Washington Carver, who became a great scientist known for experiments with peanuts and sweet potatoes.
I didn't know he did sweet potatoes. I know he was the peanut guy, but I didn't know he did sweet potatoes.
Yeah, but he's from Missouri, famous black son. Yeah.
Cool.
Also, James Langston Hughes, born in Joplin, Missouri, became a great American poet. Yes. See, this is what gets interesting. Yeah. When you look this stuff up, it's interesting.
Yeah.
This is something I think we may have a little bit more in common than other things about the differences between California and Missouri. The average wages for Missouri is from $13 an hour to $34 an hour. That obviously depends on what the job is.
Right.
And in California, it's from $12 an hour to $31 an hour. So here you go. We have the most expensive state that I'm living in, and you have the almost least expensive state that you're living in. And if you're on an hourly wage, somewhere in that, in that length there between 12, 13 to 30, 31 to 34, we're not a lot different in that. And that tells me something about what's wrong with this country.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're telling me that it isn't enough different living there, cost of living wise, and salary wise.
Yeah, I very much underestimated how much the cost of living was here. I figured that I'd be buying a house and within a relatively short period of time.
Really?
And then when during COVID, of course, I couldn't do massage. And so I was working in a hardware store, and the same job that I was being paid. I think when I was at Miners there in Morro Bay, I think I started out at $14 an hour. And when I started here for the same job as a cashier, it was $11 an hour.
That's that $2 difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I rose up fairly quickly to assistant manager, but even as assistant manager, it was still $16, $17 an hour.
I didn't look up what your minimum wage is. I know our minimum wage used to be 13 in California. It's gone up to 16, I think, just this year.
I don't know if it's still 12.
Could be.
I'm not sure if it went up or not. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting point, though, and I don't know at the end. I don't think I found out this. The average salary to get by in California, this is really laughable. No, it's truly laughable. I wrote ha 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 after I wrote this. The average salary to get by comfortably is $89,190. That's California. And then in other areas, you're going to go and you're going to look on the site, and it's going to tell you need to make $160,000 an hour, which I think is more realistic than the $89,000. And I have to have some ha 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 because I have a monthly income of $20,810. And hello.
Right.
You know, and I mean, and then we wonder why people are living in their car. So let me ask you about that. What's the homeless situation like in areas in Missouri? And I know it has to be different in cities than possibly out in the rural area. But let's compare your area to kind of Morro Bay or something of that size. Maybe Lexington compared to Morro Bay or something like that.
Actually, Lexington is smaller than Odessa.
Oh.
Yeah. The towns out here, they average around, they are usually about 4,000 to 5,000 people. Like I said, Kansas City has 460,000. Kansas City is where you really see the homeless situation. I have not been in too many of the downtown areas, but from the freeway, you can see the camps and you can see the areas. I know that they're making big pushes to to provide more housing for the homeless there in Kansas City. Of course, out here we have the weather is a huge issue. Because it gets so cold. But out here in the rural areas, you won't see the homeless. People are, it's not, you remember in Morro Bay, you'd see homeless people wandering around, but they were usually transients, they were going from one place to another.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Not anymore. In the few years since you've been gone, we have what I would call a stable population just in our town of 125 homeless people. Wow. Stable. They do not leave. Yeah.
Wow.
They've recently been rounded up in a couple of areas because it just got to be environmentally really not safe even for them or anyone. So, unfortunately, you have to follow the law, and my poor people over at the police department are suffering with that.
Yeah.
But no, it's different. It's changing, and it's not changing for the better. So it's interesting to me that you're not seeing any. So maybe it's so small where you are that they would have no services.
Yeah, it's the cities wouldn't be able to care. The budgets for the cities are so tight, although it kind of makes you want. I mean, it's small town, so but they wouldn't have the services out here. The services are in the bigger cities. So there would be St. Louis, Columbia, Kansas City, Springfield, Jefferson City. Those would probably be the areas where the homeless would gather, because those would be the cities that would be big enough to have the services.
Right. Well, what services? That's another question. If you look at even the areas here that supposedly have services, and they're not adequate enough. I mean, I know up in Atascadero, which is, for people that don't know where we are, Atascadero is over the hill and north of Morro Bay. Echo does a magnificent job, but they can't handle the load either. Yeah. And the one in San Luis Obispo, which is our major government town, they really can't handle the load. I mean, they just, that hasn't changed size-wise in all the years that I've lived here.
Yeah.
And it's just being overwhelmed. I don't know what they're doing now. They had this site going out in the county, near where the sheriff's department was, where the jail was.
Oh,
And
okay.
there was a piece of land there, and they allowed, well, people found recreational vehicles, or they had vans, stuff like that, and they let them live in there for the last couple of years. And for no unknown reason that we can think of, except that it did get a little messy, they booted them all out.
Oh.
And I don't know whether you see that in Missouri or not, because you don't seem to have it much in your area. But when you set something up, and you got it going for a couple of years, where do you expect these people to go?
Right.
It's frustrating. So the beautiful little road we have here called Terry Road.
Yes.
One of the nicest, last of the kind, real rural road, country road. Well, they're all camping all out on that road.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
There was nobody out there before when I was there.
Well, there is now.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's changed a lot, and I think some of them have become, there's just no place else for them to go.
Right.
And there's not going to go towards the cities. The cities are overwhelmed with this thing, the large, really large cities.
Right. But the property owners out there what do they have to say about it?
Well, what property owners are there on Terry Road? I mean, there's some ranches, and I don't know what they've had to say about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It was almost unknown for a while, and then suddenly everybody said, I just drove down Terry Road, and it's full of homeless people.
Oh.
Yeah. Wow. It's not a good thing, obviously. All right, let's talk about cultural differences. I think that's probably where maybe there's some similarities, but I think there's more differences than there are similarities. Of course, cultural and political differences for sure. We both live in a rural area, really. This is an agricultural area here, and you're in an agricultural area. So we got that in common.
Right.
We've
Yeah.
both been rather small town areas.
Correct. Yeah. Very much so.
So, what do you find culturally different between when you were living here and compare it to this area, not to the city if you lived in Southern California? Because to me, Southern California is another world.
True. Well, Morro Bay was very liberal and open-minded. It had just a lot of diversity. Out here, it is this is Trump land. It's very conservative, and you see Trump everywhere. Oh. Trump 24. I mean, it's Trump land. I have met very few people that were Democrats or even willing to admit that they are. And I had to, because people are very friendly, very nice, very welcoming, very friendly. I was worried that people would not be very welcoming because I was from California. My sister and her husband moved to Arizona, and they had to kind of keep it quiet that they were from California for a while because people were not welcoming. I'd heard that Texas was bad with Californians. And, sometimes people are just not friendly towards us that are from California. So I was a little concerned about it. But you know what? In the 3+ years I've been here, I only had one person that was rude about it and actually kind of mean. The rest were all welcome to California. I mean, welcome to Missouri. Welcome to Missouri. And there was at the hardware store, there was one older guy. He used to call me California. Hey, California, how's it going today? But everybody was very friendly, very welcoming. I mean, you go to the DMV and they're sweet and they're nice and they go out of their way to help you. And
boy, that's a change. That right there would be a huge change.
Right. But at the same time, very different. Just in the, like the California, we have our car registration and then you pay your registration every year as part of your thing. Well, as part of owning a vehicle. Well, that's not the case out here. A car out here is considered personal property. So, yeah. The whole, so I paid.
So does it get taxed like personal property?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's not, so, So when I first went to the DMV, they charged me this little $50 registration fee. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Oh my gosh, it's so much cheaper than California and blah, and I'm like all excited, right? And then come April, I get this bill that was like, what the heck is this? Personal property? I don't own any personal property. And then I'm talking to people I work with and everything, and they're like, oh yeah, that's how it works, and da da da. And it was more than I think it's higher than what I would have paid for my vehicle registration had I been in California.
Wow.
And of course, during COVID, used car values went up, so it was even more. But yeah, that was a rude awakening.
Yeah.
So yeah, you pay property taxes on your vehicle. You don't pay a registration fee, or you do once you come into the state, and then after that, it's personal property.
Yeah.
Wow. And the other thing another thing was smoking. Oh wow, I got to say that California, anywhere you go to a restaurant, to a bar, to the beach, to any gathering, anything. So you really don't even have to think about cigarettes or smoking or anything like that, because it's just not around. Here, everybody smokes. Everybody smokes. And you walk in, they have smoking section in the restaurant. But, it's like when I was a little kid, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of smoking out in the outlying areas. I think there's a lot of out here. There's a lot of, we do have drugs. We have alcoholism. So it's the Wild West out here, kind of.
The Wild West.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. You never know. You never know. Somebody will be weaving their way down the road, and you don't know if they're, it might be 10 o'clock in the morning. So yeah.
Well, that happens here too. So that I would say we're not very different, to tell you the truth. I just read something on Facebook about the car that turned over yesterday, and out on, I think it was either 46 or 41, with the horrible area out there, but driving under the influence and not wearing the seatbelts, thrown out of the car, all that kind of thing. I guess one dead, two really bad.
Oh wow.
And it was not the middle of the night or anything. It was just, anytime you're taking I really feel like we take our chances now going out on the highway.
Yeah.
Anytime. Yeah. It's tough. And that all started with cell phones. In my opinion, the cell phone thing really
absolutely
made it much worse, because they just do not obey the law, and they're always on that bloody cell phone.
Yep.
Yeah. God. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you're politically different. One of the first things that pops up when you look up California says Democratic, politically Democrat for the whole state, which is sort of interesting, because this area, while Morro Bay, I would say it's half and half now. It isn't completely liberal. I would say it's half and half. And obviously you go over the hill to the North County and you got the Trump signs all over the place up there. It isn't any different. San Luis Obispo is hard to figure. It's just, it being the government town, it's different.
Right.
South County, I can't tell what the heck they are.
Yeah.
I really don't know. But to me, they lean so heavily towards Southern California that I would think that they're more conservative, because Southern California really is more conservative than the far Northern California area, like the San Francisco area. But basically for the whole state, when you count the numbers, I think that there are more Democrats and more Democratic representation here.
Right.
Of course, it's nice, our friend Dawn Addis, who was our city council person here, who was very active with Yes We Can Peacebuilders. I miss her somewhat. We got her elected the very first Democrat ever for this area in the assembly. Wow. And a woman besides which. Yeah. So now we have to work to make sure she gets reelected. It's that kind of thing. It's working out really to our benefit. And this just isn't just San Luis Obispo County, but it's Monterey County too, and part of Santa Cruz area and all that kind of stuff up that way. So she has a large territory to deal with as an assembly person, but definitely was a good move for all the way around,
Right.
So there's that. But then go over into the valley, go around the corner up here to the ranchers, And you're not talking to Democrats. I got news for you. So you live in an agricultural area. I would expect it to be conservative. And I would expect it to be Republican.
I wanted to understand why people are the way they are. And I felt like the culture being so different, and they're just very anti-government. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be bothered. And very anti-government. And so I wanted, and I shouldn't say very anti-government, but basically don't want to be bothered by government. And so in order to understand that, that's where I started reading about the history of Missouri. And now I completely understand why they don't want anything to do with it.
Based what on the original?
And I think the draw for Trump for them is because he's a rebel, and they consider themselves, he's anti, establishment, and so they see themselves as anti-establishment. And I think that's why they align with him more so than the other side.
That's interesting.
That's just my own take on it.
Yeah. I wouldn't consider him a rebel, but that's okay. The type of rebel that I consider a rebel, but that's interesting. Yeah. I know the Aggie people here, I'm sure I don't find the ones that are friendly with me coming out using his name ever, which I do find interesting. But I know that they're definitely down that road. They're definitely on this right side of the road. And when I do this, I'm waving my left hand, but this is my right hand. And I understand a little bit why they feel that way. I had the guy that got on one time, and we were talking about going electric in our vehicles, right? And he was trying to tell us how really awful it would be to have an electric tractor.
Yeah.
Or any of those or one of the trucks that they have to use, even the pickup trucks that they have to use, which are V8 diesel operated vehicles, because if you've ever gone over that terrain, and I've gone with them,
right,
that's tough,
Yeah,
so I don't blame them.
Right.
Yeah.
The electric for agricultural work doesn't work.
No, I unless they come back with better technology, it doesn't seem to be. So I understand, you come up to a point of understanding. And the best one I saw recently was when they started to, the federal government is going to, I guess they're in the process, or whatever's happening with the poor student loan people, trying to alleviate them from their student loans. And the guy got on Facebook and he said, I just had to buy, and he gave the amount of money for his new high level, heavy duty diesel pickup truck. And he says, nobody's forgiving me for that loan. And that really rang a bell in my head. And I thought, I understand why they feel this way.
Yeah.
They said, what's more valuable to you? The produce that I grow in my fields that's feeding the nation, or that piece of paper that, that kid's going to get going through a 4-year college or university and going to come up with his Bachelor of Arts degree, which is, quite frankly, rather worthless and he had a point.
Yeah.
I thought, and this is why I think we need more dialogue. So it's interesting that you say I'm sure they're not, everybody's feeling like they don't want anything to do with the government. I get that here too. But I think it's more intense in the middle part of the country.
Yeah. It goes back to their history. It goes back to the history, Civil War, all of that. Missouri really was stuck in the middle and suffered at the hands of both. Missouri really suffered.
Really?
And so, and that was only 160 years ago or so. It's still within the DNA of of the people here that you can't trust anybody, especially government, because the Union soldiers, the federal officers, the things that happened with the Civil War was horrible. And it had nothing to do, the war here was not, slavery was just a very small portion of the war for so many people. And here in Missouri, the county that I live in was the highest, had the highest population of slaves. But still, it was only a handful of people that owned the slaves. And for the people here, it had nothing. It really had very little to do with slavery. They were aligning themselves with the Confederacy and the guerrillas in order to save their lands, save themselves, their family. I mean, it's a horrible history that happened here, and this is why they have no trust of the government whatsoever.
Oh,
yeah, horrible.
Interesting. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. That's the things we don't know. We don't know this about lots of different places in the country. And,
right.
And there's this tremendous misunderstanding. I mean, I know the lifestyle here is vastly different than the lifestyle in the middle of the country. I always think, who told me that if you go into the Midwest, you're going to never see any lettuce, tomatoes, or leafy greens like that, and all the women are 400 pounds. and I used to get couple of these agricultural magazines that kind of prove that to be almost the truth. And then California, we got plenty of leafy greens because we grow them.
Yeah,
we practically feed the world with lettuce and what have you. And we're on this health nut thing here, and I don't think.
I think a lot of that has to do with weather. I living in California, I was outside all the time. And of course, in Morro Bay, we're spoiled because we have the beach and we have the mountains and we had so much beauty around us and so many places to go and do. And here, it's cold. Wintertime is miserable. And we have this north wind that just cuts right through you. And so to go outside is not a good experience. And also because in California, you can grow almost anything all year round. So you have access to all of that. And out here, you don't. The only access you have is the grocery store. And of course, we know the grocery store prices are ridiculous. And then like in the small towns, we don't even have a grocery store in this town.
Oh.
We have McDonald's, we have Taco John's, we have Subway, we have Sonic, and we have a Chinese restaurant and two Mexican restaurants, one of which I won't even. That's the other thing. There is no real Mexican food in Missouri. Oh my Lord! And
I'm not surprised at that.
They don't know what carne asada is, believe me. So we have the choices for food here are tough. In fact, I used to be out when I lived in California. I was extremely anti-Walmart, anti-big box, all of that. Well, now that's where I have to do my grocery shopping is Walmart because there's no other choices. There's another grocery store chain, Price Chopper. There's another one, Hy-Vee, but they're a lot more expensive. Walmart is my only choice. Wow. And I have to drive 20 minutes. It's about 20 minutes down the interstate to get there. So we had a grocery store here in town for when I first moved here, but nobody went there and the prices were super expensive and they didn't have very much. They didn't really have much produce, but but yet in the summertime, a lot of the farms have produce available and you can buy your meat right from the farmer. You can buy your produce right from the farmer. So there is a lot of that. I typically, my meat, I buy locally because there's two different producers here that I can get my meat from. So I know exactly where it was raised.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Produce is a whole nother story. I miss Avocado Shack. I got to tell you, I miss Mike and Avocado Shack. I used to love that place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's doing well. He's up in Shorty and Son's old auto place. He took that over.
He did that right before I left. And
did he? Okay.
I follow him on Facebook and I always watch his videos. And oh my gosh, he's done so good. I miss that place.
Yeah. Well, maybe he could maybe mail you a box of it or something.
That was a big concern when I moved out here. It's like, do they have avocados?
Yeah, that's not funny. I would miss that too. Yeah.
But no, they got avocados. But yeah, I got to go to Walmart. Although I got to say that out there at the big stores, you go to look at the produce and it is not that great a quality. Out there in California, it's not that great a quality. I come out here and the produce at Walmart was actually pretty decent. So I think
that's kind of depressing.
I know. I think California's shipping out the good stuff and leaving the locals with the bad stuff.
That's why we have to go farmers market here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whatever is being offered in farmers market, you really have to go through it and take it from there. Farmers market. I mean, if I go up on Thursday to Spencer's, they have farmers market. It's swamped in that parking lot.
Oh yeah.
And there's nobody. It's the right time to go to the store because there's nobody in the store. They are out there at that farmers market, which is great.
Yeah.
So that's all these very small little growers in this area that are able to put out what they got.
Yeah. You guys do the farmers markets year round. Out here, it's seasonal. They start in May and they go until about October. So it's only seasonal here. But we do have the farmers markets are pretty popular out here.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, but I'm envious about the beef because we were trying to get that going. My rancher friends, that raise cattle, who still talk to me because I'm obviously on the other side of the fence from them. They wanted that going, and if it is going, it's very, very private. I think, where they have somebody comes in, USDA guy comes in, and they have a slaughter. It's a slaughter truck, actually, or wagon or whatever, and certain people, they pick certain animals and they slaughter the animals. I interviewed somebody up in the Arroyo Grande near Lopez Lake that did it with goats, and he actually let all of the Filipino people come in, and he put in a place where they could literally do the slaughter themselves if they know how to do that.
Oh wow.
And he put in that facility for them, and he would import goats from Oregon, feed them, grow them, get them all ready, and then he would have people come and they would get their meat that way.
Wow.
You have to really hunt it out here. And I wish we had more availability like you do, because boy, that's the way to do it. Because I want to tell you, you go to the supermarket, I can't afford to buy anything but ground beef.
Yeah.
I can't touch it's outrageous as far as beef is concerned. And since they don't want us to eat it anyway, because you craps up your arteries or whatever. So I don't eat much of that. But the same thing with chickens. So you're always, the local chicken guy 2 or 3 blocks up here. When they get really old, we get a chicken, but it's an old chicken that he's slaughtered and what have you. So I wish we had more of that. So I'm envious of you on that one. I'm a little jealous about that because that's a good thing. Yeah. I don't think I got to drive through Missouri. I drove through parts of Kansas on one of my little treks. I had to go to Texas. I think this was 1988 or so. I mean, somewhere in there. In the late 80s. And because I had a contract to photograph feedlots, believe it or not, in the panhandle of Texas. I did a lot of cattle photography then. So they sent me off to Hereford, Texas. They thought it was very humorous that my last name being Angus and I was going to go to Hereford, Texas. And I was photographing feedlots. But then I decided I would take a little trek and go around and see some other things. I went through a little bit of Oklahoma. But then I got into Kansas and I wanted to see wheat fields. Because I was told that Kansas grows a lot of wheat, right? So I wanted to see the wheat fields. And it was springtime, so they were growing, the grasses were up. And I went down this little country road, and here I am out with my camera in the middle of this damn wheat field, taking pictures of wheat. And this little old lady came driving along in a white pickup truck, and she stopped. And I thought, oh, I'm in trouble. And she said, no. She was so happy to greet me. I'm from California. And she took me down to her house, and she showed me all of the silos and everything, and how they and all the big equipment that they eventually used to do the wheat and what have you. Oh my God, it was just great. I just loved it. I loved it. So what's the major crop in Missouri? I mean, they can't wheat for Kansas and corn for Iowa, but what's about Missouri?
It's corn. There's a lot of corn. Yeah, corn and soybeans. Everybody's corn.
Soybeans.
Yeah.
Oh,
at least in this area. I don't know. That's pretty much Lafayette County, Ray County, which is just north of, on the other side of the Missouri River. And I'm not sure how big of an area, but I know for this whole area, it's soybean and corn.
Wow. Yeah. See, and you drive up 101 in California, particularly 101, not so much out in the major valley, because they tend to have one huge, large crop out there. But in the Salinas Valley, it's every vegetable you can think of. And even on down into our county and part of Santa Barbara County, I know we're heavy on strawberries and broccoli,
No, I always check when I buy my produce. I always like to see, because I grew up in the Salinas Valley. I grew up in Salinas, and I was there. I lived there for a time. So, Watsonville, Prunedale, all that. I know those areas, and so I like to look at my produce and see if it came from Santa Maria or if it came from Watsonville. Where it came from, because I know those places.
Yeah. Does it? Do you see that?
Sometimes it does. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you're getting better product. You're getting better.
I am.
There's something wrong with that picture.
I was astounded. I couldn't believe how good the produce was. It's like, this is Walmart. I thought it would be really crappy, and it's actually not bad. Yeah.
Well, they must have a really swift delivery service from out here to them
and
across the country.
I shop at 2 different ones, and they're both pretty good. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And my friends are going to really jump all over me, but we have to start to accept these large box type companies, these large things like Amazon. I'm sorry, I cannot do it without Amazon. I can get everything on Amazon.
Out here, you can't. You have to have Amazon.
You have to have Amazon.
Oh yeah, because okay, so for example, my son and his brother-in-law my kids live out on a farm, and they have a 4x4, which you use for farm equipment, and it's not running that well. So they ordered the air filter and something else on Amazon, because you don't have the benefit of just driving down the street to the auto parts store.
Right.
And if you do, it's going to be a considerable more expense than if you just got it on Amazon, and Amazon, it'll be here tomorrow. So out here, Amazon, people are very reliant on it for everything.
Well, I'm beginning to be that way too. As a matter of fact, I ordered a pair of shoes today. The shoes that I have on my feet right now are literally falling apart. So I looked to see what they were, and they were a Dr. Comfort shoe. I thought, wait a minute, I'll bet it's on Amazon. Yeah. And by God, I can get the same shoe on Amazon cheaper than I can if I go directly to the Dr. Comfort website also. Right. And definitely if I go out to Mike's or whatever here, Good Shoes or whatever they are here in the shopping mall to get them. And they're going to come on Friday. So I don't have to go out and do this. I know they fit.
Yeah. Well, see, and during the winter time, you don't want to be driving, because we have ice on the road.
You have snow and ice.
They have, like this winter, we had 2 different times where there was traffic warnings, and they were saying, do not drive if you don't have to, because and I think tonight we're supposed to get a wintry mix. It's a mix of rain and snow, and and we have black ice, and I'd never known of such a thing until I fell on it, but sometimes you can't tell that it's on the road, and it's scary.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember I lived in the Northeast.
You would know.
Yeah. Many a time you were all over the road, or you didn't go, or if you were walking, you were falling. Yeah, it was treacherous. Yeah, I do not miss that at all. 55 years in California, I'm not ever going back to anything like that.
Yeah, I don't blame it.
Yeah. That's tough. Yeah. Well, it rained for us yesterday and the day before, so it's probably coming your way, because it all seems to come into us and then goes across the country to you guys somehow or another. Yeah. So I don't know what you're going to get, but then by the time I hit you, you're colder than we are. Now, I have to say that it has been really cold here, but for me, it's a little over 50 degrees in the daytime and I'm freezing.
Yeah.
And I'm running my electric heater, that kind of thing, my little, Dr. Electric heater to keep myself warm. And I thought about you yesterday. I thought, oh gosh, she'd probably think I'm a real ninny, but I'm sorry, it's cold.
Yeah. I used to think that 50 degrees was cold there, but it's almost balmy. So it can get cold. Yeah. The other thing people told me about here, it's so humid. Well, I said I lived at the beach. I mean, it's humid in Morro Bay. So
easily 80% humidity here. Yeah.
Yeah. The humidity here has not really been that much of an issue for
me. But I think in the summer, because you get hot with the humidity.
Oh yeah.
See, here we don't have the humidity as much in the summer here as we do in the winter when we get the rain thingies and what have you. Yeah. So it is better here in that sense. Yeah. I mean, I lived in Arizona for 4 years, and I would never go back to that kind of heat. I'd rather have the cold any day of the week than go back to that kind of heat.
Yeah. It gets hot here. It gets hot and muggy. Very hot and muggy.
Yeah. It doesn't get muggy in Arizona as much, but I'm sorry, anything over 100 is, I don't care if it's 100 or 120, it's blazing. So,
right.
Yeah. And hopefully we won't have any of that in Morro Bay. I mean, every now and then, as you know, we would get that too.
True.
Yeah. So it's different living, kiddo. I don't know what to tell you. I've looked up all this stuff about you, and I do think you have some very interesting history to look into. I think you should make a point of going to as much as you can, and when you can travel to any of those historical places.
Yeah, I have.
I think that would be fascinating. I would love to see all of that. That's the kind of thing I like to see.
Yeah, no, I've been to the Anderson in Lexington. There's the Anderson House, which was also the site of the Battle of Lexington. And then I've been to Fort Scott in Kansas and Fort Osage here in Missouri. And I've been to several, areas, and cemeteries are fascinating.
Yes.
Because they've got, if you see somebody that died back in 1860, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, and they're in their 20s and they were male, they probably died in the war.
Right. And that would be the Civil War? The Civil War.
Yeah. Yeah. The Civil, because actually before the Civil War, there was huge, what they call them the border wars, but between Kansas and Missouri, there's still a lot of it's still there, the animosity between the two states. Really? There was border wars there that were extremely violent, and that was actually a precursor to the Civil War. But yeah, the history here is just, and
I would think interesting, really interesting. Yeah.
You have the Oregon people what they were doing where they were coming up the Missouri River, St. Louis, and then they would stop in St. Louis or Kansas City to get their supplies to head out west. Mm-hmm. So this was a huge area for that. A lot of the economy at the time was based on, people coming in and buying their supplies and getting their things, getting equipped to head out west or wherever they were going. So that is what started a lot of the cities. Mm-hmm. Lexington, they had ferries. They also did steamboats up and down the river.
Is Lexington right on the Missouri?
Yeah, Lexington. It doesn't sit directly on the Missouri, and they don't have a ferry anymore. So some of that's been pulled back, but they do. I mean, they're basically quarter of a mile away from the river. Yeah.
Oh, neat.
It sits up. The city itself kind of sits up on a bluff above the river.
Okay.
Yeah.
Neat. So you're planning to move there since you're sort of working down that way?
Actually, that's where I would prefer to go. I really love the area, the town.
Yeah.
Lots of history, lots of old houses. And the people are just amazing, really welcoming, very friendly.
Unless you talk politics.
Actually, I stay out of that realm pretty much. But like Odessa, there's nothing for the animals here. And Lexington checks all my boxes. They've got an animal shelter. They've got a great chamber. The chamber president is really good because, when I was in Morro Bay, we had such a strong chamber, and I've always been a big fan of a strong chamber, and we have a good one in Lexington. They have a tourism bureau. They used to do Civil War reenactments, but I understand since COVID, that's all gone by the wayside. I don't know if it's going to come back or not. Yeah. But there's a medical center there.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
It's just a great area.
Yeah. Well, I hope you make the move. That sounds good.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping, at some point. My kids live here in Odessa, but Lexington's only 20 minutes away. So.
Oh, that's not bad at all. Yeah.
No.
And well, we are coming up close to an hour on this, which is amazing, and I think I'll have fun sending this out to everybody. I hope we recorded it right. Everybody needs to know that this was the first time I'm doing this particular one using StreamYard rather than Zoom, and you can get all these fun things like these banners, and I can get my logo and just different things you can do. Eventually, I'll learn how to bring on videos. I'll learn how to do some of the other stuff, but to begin with, just to talk with one other person and record it, and we are getting a little feedback, so I don't know why we did, because you're wearing your thingies and I got mine, but we're gonna have to live with it. And I don't know why my other microphone didn't work. So I have a few things I have to find out on this, but I think this turned out really good, talking with SanDee Winn, who is a evacuee or something from Morro Bay, living in godforsaken Odessa, Missouri. But it's good to have. It's actually kind of interesting to have a connection with people across the country.
Yeah.
So you know, we do keep in touch, and it's good to do that. You know,
Yeah.
First of all, you don't want to ever lose a good friend. So someday maybe you'll have enough money to come for a visit, because I will never be going to Missouri. And it's just, you know, my traveling days are over, really.
Right. Well, I'm hoping.
Yeah, that'd be good. All right, we're going to sign off, and I'm going to end the recording. You stay put, and we'll see what happens. I don't know how this really ends, okay?
Okay.
Bye-bye to everybody.
Thank you.